Today's episode of The Sound of Sales is a great one for starting sales teams that are looking to increase their sales, and sales professionals looking to build processes and procedures. I've invited Cedric. With a long track record in sales, he's currently helping sales teams putting these things in place. It is super important that when you start, you think about the systems that you are using, because once it starts to roll and when things get on speed, it's often too late to think about them. It's a great episode, and again, I've written a lot of stuff down that I can use for future reference. I am Bram, and this is The Sound of Sales. Could you do me a quick favor if you're listening to this? Please hit the follow or subscribe button. It helps more than you think.
Hiring based on outcome is absolutely important. If you want to scale, if you want to grow, you need systems. This might be an assumption. Not everybody wants to become a sales executive.
Kick things off. If I would ask your wife what you do for a living, what would she reply to me, Cedric?
That I'm a salesperson. Definitely. I think that's there's no denying I'm a salesperson.
What qualifies a salesperson for you?
Well, many people think it's a good talker, and this is only one part. But we all know we have 2 eyes and 1 mouth. It's being a good listener, so being very attentive, and I think that's a very important one. And that's maybe the first lesson that people learn once they enter sales is that listening part to start becoming successful. That's
indeed something that is often forgotten. I'm going to do my pitch. That's the. That's what's in the mind of most salespeople.
And it has to do with part of stress. When people talk, it's nervous. You can have the rejection when you start the dialogue or start a conversation or not. And then you want to get it out of your system and then think, okay, will you buy? But that's not the way sales goes, of course.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, sales is like drastically changing. In the last few months, it's like a lot of focus on the human aspect. It's like you have to earn to pitch. How do you see it evolve?
Yeah, and to be honest, I have a bit of mixed feelings in this. I started my career in complex sales in $1 million deals, or it was before the euro even, so it was a long time ago. Mm-hmm. But then relation and trust were hugely important. And with the automation that is happening now, with the social media, it was my impression that people started to hide a bit behind the tools. And we are, in the end, we are only at the beginning of the automation. And if you look at it, the real human-to-human automated interaction. But now it is still very important. So people are, I think, trying to find back that humanity with using tools, as well as having that interaction with people as well. With COVID, you realize how much people miss the human contact. So I really believe that people need and the human touch and the human contact. So the human aspect will always stay there.
Yeah, and I think it's in waves. Sometimes it's like more focus on that, and sometimes it goes away again. I've seen a huge shift. There was a preach for you need to personalize every email, you need to spend 5 minutes on research, 5 minutes on that. And right now it's already shifting a little bit, like it's getting scary if you do too much research. Take it back a little bit.
Yeah, because then you go to the other side, which is trying to be perfect, and nothing can ever be perfect. So the thing is, just start, but then just start at least prepared. So you know who is your contact person, what are the goals of the company you're calling into, and then have a conversation. Not, okay, this is my product, and I'm going to pitch what we just said. It's really starting that conversation and know that only call or contact that person when you know you can deliver value. And I think that's a bit rather than going all out, mass mail or whatever, really focus on that, starting that conversation.
Yeah, 2 extremes. Too much research, too little research.
True. Yeah, true. Or some gurus, eh?
Yeah, Yeah, or that. To take it back a few years to yourself. So you recently made the jump from corporate environment into entrepreneurship. But if you just said it, you were involved in Belgian franc deals before the euro. What was your journey?
Yeah, so I first of all, I was not thinking at all ever to be a real, call it, at that time we did not really call it entrepreneur or tech founder or you name it. But when you look at my journey, I started like many people, I think, in sales just because I was apparently a good talker. I was first thinking marketing, but I started quickly into sales. But I didn't know anything about sales, and I think I hit every possible wall you can hit in sales, making all the basic mistakes, going from trying to push to not knowing what to say, not knowing anything about objection handling, having not any structure. So, and then of course a lot of failing. At the same time, I pretty quickly entered tech sales, where we had these huge deals. And despite me not having any real sales skills, there was a huge demand for security. So I entered the security tech market, and I learned a lot about evangelizing, entering new technology, creating trust. So the verbal side, yes, but then asking for the sale and all these things that really you get the hang of, either by practicing or by having trainers. This was something I really struggled with for a long time, and actually I skipped this because I became pretty quickly a sales leader. So when I was 30, I drove by bus 3 days, 2 nights to Russia, and I started working there as a sales leader for tech companies, where I did not necessarily need to sell, just support the salespeople, training salespeople, and coaching salespeople. And only later on, I really realized what makes a good salesperson, and one, having that structure, and then secondly, repetition. I used to be a quite intense practitioner of karate. And there we did thousands of kicks, thousands of hits, thousands of blockings, not 10 times or 15 times, but really repetition. And when I combined what I learned intuitively in sales with then my repetition, and then what I learned from trainers, I became way more systematic. And then you really had that hockey stick effect into my skills and in the way I coach salespeople. That really everything came together, and then there was a massive increase in my performance. But it was in the end quite a long journey.
That's pretty cool how you say that, combining the strength of karate, of what you learned there, into your professional career. Did you make that mind shift on a day you woke up and you're like, actually, what we are learning there, I can apply that, or did it come natural to you?
It was actually afterwards, and then I was like, oh God, why didn't I think about this later? Then you start like for example, one of the first trips I went to Ukraine, I had in 4 days. So I lived in Russia at that time. I had 15 meetings in 4 days, and I was constantly repeating a pitch and I went every time more and more fluent, and I had a buy-in, and it was a very successful trip. And then I realized actually this is the way to go. And then I made a link that in other things you also need to do repetition, but it's doing the right things right, not just randomly talking, but really talking with an outcome in mind, prepare your conversation, and so on and so on. So then I really started to systemize my selling.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that you became a sales leader pretty early on. How did that come about? Did you do something out of the world that, like, that company said, we need you?
So the fact is, the fact that there's a foreigner in Russia, people that with schooling outside of Russia, they were really needed at that time. So they're amazing engineers and project managers. On the commercial side, there was at that time still a lot to learn. So I joined first of all. First I had my own representation, and then I worked for a Russian guy who had representatives all over Russia. And then I really started to training those. A very quick turnover rates as well. It was just at that moment where the Russian salary started to kick off. So the first person, he tripled his salary in a couple of months' time. So it was a very fast-moving environment there. So constantly hiring people. Yeah. And then when I was a year in Russia, I got in contact with somebody I worked with before, a German guy, and they were looking for somebody for NVIDIA in Russia. So NVIDIA is a fabulous semiconductor company, and the role was to open the market. And the channel market on the one side, and secondly also talking to the market, to the press, in evangelizing again the technology. Why do you need that type of graphics? So it was a very strategic and a very high impact role. And then again, I had the chance due to the performance to build up my team. Have at that time an amazing sales journey.
Yeah. How did you end up in Russia?
Well, I was at that time I was married to a Russian woman, and then we decided to move to Russia. So that was the reason.
Yeah, it's not like something overnight that you think I'm gonna find a job in Russia right now.
No, it was not. I was thinking to leave Belgium. Definitely want to have an international experience, and the reality is I only have had international experience since then. I did come back from Russia back to Belgium for a number of years, but in the meantime, I've been 7 years in Dublin. So there's so many opportunities outside of Belgium. So
that's true. Yeah. If you look back to those days, is there a particular moment that is printed on your mind? Something can be good or bad, but what do you remember?
The amazing growth that country and the region had at that time, plus, and this is something that I still recognize when I enter either new customers or new territories. So I managed 16 countries, going from Serbia, which was a very small hardware market, compared with Russia, which was a huge market. And whatever market you are in, you want to spend as much attention to the people you talk to. They deserve as much respect as the biggest company than in Russia, and not just because you want to win that market, but because it's the right thing to do, to give them as much support. And everybody says yes, but we are, and then they say the name of their nation or the name of their nationality. So when you go to France, they say, oh, in France it's difficult business. In the UK they say, oh, it's in the UK it's difficult business. So everybody says in their own country it's difficult business, as a kind of an apology. But every time we manage to be successful, and then we come back to the human aspects. There are only a handful of really human drivers, the ones, and the people want to have, they want to take care of their family, they want to have a legacy, leave something behind. It's either an ego, so there are a few drivers, and you always find them back.
That's true. And if you, right now, you decided to leave all that behind, so you're making the jump. It's also the name of your book that that you've written. So the book and this jump is something completely else. But if you look at why you made the jump right now, so you're leaving behind the sales infrastructure, and you're becoming the full-time entrepreneur.
Yes, and I've been an entrepreneur a couple of times, and either you are an entrepreneur, I think, or you're not. It has to do with a sense of freedom, I think. I'm very good in startup and scale-up environments, and I'm less, let me say it, less efficient in more mature organizations. And then I believe in processes. I 100% believe in systems. Systems is, by the way, the key of my my new venture. However, I'm less for the 100 processes oriented organizations, and where there is a gap in the market. And when I speak to scale-ups and startups founders, first of all, not all of them have sales experience. And secondly, they don't have the systems to be successful. And if you look at James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, where he says, you don't rise to the goals of your you don't rise to the level of your goals, but you fall to the level of your systems. That's a very profound thing to say, of course. And if you want to scale, if you want to grow, you need systems. As when I mentioned my journey, when everything was intuitive, because of some luck, I could grow with the success of the demand of the market, but I did not have the inherent skill, a systemized way of selling, of pipeline management, and so on. And companies really can dramatically grow when they start with those systems and start to use those systems repeatedly and systematically to grow faster. Especially today, when you look at the employment situation, it's very hard to find employees. So why not try to or aim to optimize your existing capacity rather than trying to hire more people? They're so hard to find today. And if you look at it, so companies that I helped, when they go from 20% customer facing time to 60% customer facing time, it has a dramatic improvement also on their sales. And when sales cycles going from 12 months to 3 months. So with a few, by implementing a few systems, you can have a dramatic impact already.
And it's something that often when you're starting out, for example, a startup founder or a new VP or whatever, it's often also the question like, where do I start? There's so much out there. And it seems like indeed a lot of people forget about structured processes. It's a lot of times ad hoc situations where we need revenue, so we're gonna increase our outreach with 200 prospects in order to find new revenue, for example. Is also something that you've noticed, and why you believe that processes are really the way to go?
Yeah, and that's good. And on the one hand, as long as you test, as long as you optimize, and then you need a system, you need a feedback loop, you need a feedback system. And then once you know what works or what works at that moment, then you execute relentlessly. So this is very important. And then also, when you start having opportunities in your pipeline or deals in your pipeline, that you have a way of, we are in this pipeline stage. What do I need to do to progress this pipeline or to progress this deal? And that it happens in a consistent way. Otherwise, you will have, if you have a couple of salespeople, one person will put something in one stage, the other one in another stage, and then it's very hard already to start forecasting, to know what money is coming in, what resources do you need to allocate where, especially in the early days. It's critical to allocate the resources at the right time. So that's why I would not necessarily wait until you have so-called scaling, but as soon as you have something that works, put it into a system and start executing it. And if you see the efficiency goes down, and investigate why, and then adjust it and go on again. And there's a big difference for me between the processes and the systems. Okay. If you look in big companies, they don't question the processes that are in place. While if you build a system, you can keep on the system is okay. How can you optimize? And then you constantly have to have that feedback loop. And it's on several levels, right? So it goes on from alignment, what we want to achieve, or we all aligned within the organization. Then it goes from optimizing your existing tools and your existing mainly tools, your forecasting, and so on. And it goes for how can we optimize our existing capacity that we have, and then how can we optimize our existing planning so that you can keep growing as a company.
Where do you notice that the most problems are? Where most companies are really struggling in terms of thinking and processes?
And that's a good question, because the thing is, if you look at even the beginning, when you start aligning goal setting, it can have dramatic consequences if you are not all aligned. And big companies, I have literally seen where there was a CEO assigned, and the middle management said, no, we won't follow what that person has done. This is our interpretation of the goals. This was obviously not the right way to go. So on any step, there can be problems. And if you look on the sales side, it's the documenting is an important one. If you don't document, if you don't know what is, who is following the process, what is being done, then you cannot start measuring, and then you cannot start fine-tuning the process and the system.
Yeah, it's very relatable. It's something that I noticed from my own experience, but also from people that I know. It's like it's hard to get started with documenting. It's hard to get started with putting systems in place. And like you say, sometimes when you start doing that, when the growth is starting, then it's much more difficult to implement that, or to look back into time, like, okay, what are we now doing and why is it working?
Yeah, and this is where I help. So I want to have the frameworks, and I can give the advice also around it. So because that you have a framework that you don't have to start from scratch, and then you can fill it in, you can test it, and then on the fine-tuning side, we can work together. Because many founders are tech founders, and they don't have time to reskill themselves to full-time salespeople, and they don't have time to start testing, building frameworks themselves. So you can really save much more time by bringing in temporarily some external person, rather than waiting till you might hire later on a VP sales. It doesn't make any sense to wait till then, as you said. Yeah,
relatable.
Good to hear.
It's also a super close connection with the culture of your company, right? Because if that isn't set into, I call it a results-oriented culture. If that isn't in the mind of the people, it's going to be hard to put a system in place as well, I guess.
Yeah. True. And this should be one of the expectations. So when I started 20 plus years ago, there were a bunch of these relationship builders, and when you had those pipeline reviews there in the room, like, yeah, this deal will come, and then they went on lunch somewhere, and you name it. But I did not learn anything from this. While when you have that system in place, everybody is aligned. What needs to happen when? Everybody learns from each other, and sometimes it's easier to do this with a new hire, because then it's just, okay, this is the way things are, and this is the way we do our day-to-day job, rather than trying to convince or build insights with the existing salespeople to start documenting, start reporting what you document. So this is a very important thing as well, and that's why hiring based on outcome is absolutely important in this. Yeah.
How do you hire based on outcome?
Yeah, that's a good one, and I failed a couple of times because it's more than having having a nice conversation. It's really understanding, do those people do they have a systematic way of working? Do they have a drive? Are they entrepreneurial, and do they have the growth mindset? So these, for me, the four things I really look at. So I would not say don't hire people that come from a big name, because that seems a bit the trend in the market. Don't hire people coming from big companies for that and that reason. I don't believe in this either, because they do tend to come with a big way of having a systematic way of working with customers, and you have the big name, and then you have those attitude aspects as well. And I think that's a very important one, to have that combination. But yeah, the hiring aspects is absolutely crucial. Yeah, and especially in the beginning.
Yeah, indeed. Do you test those things? Is that through a real test, or is that through a conversation that you have with candidates to make sure that they have that mindset?
Yeah, definitely. So first of all, it's sales play, to understand how they talk to customers. Do they have a sales methodology?
Some sort of role play type thing then.
Yeah, this is one thing, to understand the sales skills, and not necessarily, okay, if you have 100% good sales skills, we'll hire you. If not, we will not hire you, because we all have gaps. We try to assess where are the gaps. Do they understand that they have those gaps? And then when do they understand that they have those gaps? How are they working on it themselves? When people say to me, yeah, I want to become the best salesperson in the world. Okay, then tell me what podcast are you following? What was the last book about sales you read? And if they cannot answer this, then okay, whatever you're saying is not whatever you're doing. And this is important to know as well.
Yeah, it's something from salespeople. They can sell themselves very well.
Yeah, true.
It's a matter of getting through that layer of BS, to say it like that.
That is, and if you look at the pressure today, if you need people, and then you have a good talker, then there's a good chance you make a wrong hire. If you find somebody that has a lot of potential, then it's much better if they have the growth attitude, if they really are eager to learn, to take those people.
Yeah. Is there a moment that you think, in terms of like hiring these types of people, are there moments that you think, I wish I knew that sooner? That was something that I learned the hard way, and then all candidates that were after that, I knew like that's my bullshit grader or something like that.
Well, there are still people that fall through my bullshit radar. So it's a work in progress. That's for sure. I did learn to make a difference between hiring people that I like versus hiring people that have the right CV. I really like hiring people that have been entrepreneur.
Okay.
Because those people, when they know when they don't sell, they don't have food. To say it in an extreme way, they have that grittiness, that thoroughness. They want to learn because they want to make money. They want to grow. But still, it is very hard to especially in today's environment, to really take your time to make a decision. And when I think of the wrong hires, there was always something nagging in the back of my head, and then it's not taking a step back and listening. Okay, do we need to fill that role, or can we wait a couple of more weeks and work with the right candidate?
Yeah, because hiring is one thing, but it's firing them again. It's a lost opportunity. There's a lot of time lost.
A lot of time, a lot of momentum, especially for startups. The first hires, they're so important.
Yeah, and it's often forgotten indeed, because as a founder, for example, if you start hiring, you think I need this skill set, but you look for someone who thinks like you, who sells like you, but founder sales is completely different than the first sales hire. And what you then notice, and I've seen it with a lot of startup companies, you notice that these first salespeople, for example, or first marketeers, they have this high pressure on them that they need to perform like they are a founder selling. That's just not good for culture or for the person.
And I think that the right thing to do is not to step away from a sales role as when you have salespeople, but you support them. The CEO handshake is still such an important event. People like to talk to CEOs and the visionaries, and let the sales bring in the deal in the end, but support the salesperson definitely. And I would not hire immediately the VP sales. That's not needed either. Definitely the first 2, 3, 4 hires, just let them do, support them, test, learn, and then see who would be a good type of VP sales to hire.
It's something that I discussed with Guillaume from Lemlist. They still do it. They're currently at, I think, 10 or 11 million ARR. But from the beginning on, they hired people and they let them do full stack sales. So they scouted the deals. They needed to do everything. Is that something that you believe in? That could work?
Yeah, I believe in it. I'm still thinking. So I was working as a consultant for another company where inside sales was doing the full stack for several reasons. And there was an SDR department that I set up to support the field sales. Because field sales, it's complex sales. You need a lot of customer intimacy. You need to know a lot of people inside organizations, especially was for the UK. So the companies are huge there. So there it makes sense. But on fast moving inside, you really can do with full stack sales, definitely. And even so on customer success, there is definitely a role for customer success. I think inside sales should be much faster involved to challenge the current situation within a customer to create that upsell. A lot of customer success setups are still pretty reactive or still pretty, campaign driven. The current campaign, is there a churn risk? Yes or no? Is there a use? How can you optimize the use? And so on. However, on the strategic level, I think there could be much sooner a role for inside sales again.
Mm-hmm. And do you think it remains, or at some point your company is mature enough where you can split it into different divisions? Because I think if that moment comes, it's like a huge shift in your organization. But on the other hand, I think you can't hold on to full stack sales, because at some point your company will start to grow, or you're going to move into new markets, you're going to move into enterprise or whatever, or maybe you're already in enterprise. It's going to require different skill sets, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there is a move upward. Your inside sales is evolving. There is a moment of automation. So I think that level of automation will go up. So depending on maybe if you look at a company like Lemlist, the automation is misschien at 200, maybe at €200 a year, and then it might grow to 1,000 a year, and so on. For other companies, the automation might be at 20K, and then it goes up. Inside sales will keep on evolving. Where I see the segmentation is on that verticalization, and I think this is where the big profit comes from. Growing companies, where you maybe if you go back to maybe your company at a certain moment, you will need sector specialists, whether it's, let me say, in SaaS companies or traditional manufacturing companies. They need the same skill set. They need the same product. However, they need somebody who can say to you, okay, I'm the specialist for SaaS tech companies, and I will tell you when you need that solution, and I will bring you my technical support or my technical specialist to help you setting up the solution. But somebody who knows everything about tech sales or everything about another sector. And I think that's the next level of growth, that verticalization, and then automation, where you have more and more automation on the inside sales, but still doing full stack.
Yep, I see what you mean. That would make sense. But I think,
like, for example, for that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so for example, the company I set the inside sales, the SDR department up for, I set up the SDR department based on sectors, because the field sales was selected. You had the gas, you had the utilities, you had government, so you had banking, you had a few very big verticals. And besides this, I had the more senior people being SDRs, being responsible for the biggest verticals, simply because of the impact. And if you look at the most senior SDR at that time, she only needed 8 conversations to bring in an SQL, a sales qualified lead, while a junior SDR, he needed or she needed 40 conversations in order to bring one lead. So it was important to drive qualified leads to high revenue sectors with very long sales cycles, so that the pipeline could be filled up, while then the lower sales cycles also had, due to the sheer volume, their SQLs coming in ultimately.
Yeah, but you always have the people that are doing those jobs, they want more. They start as an SDR, they want to become an account executive, and eventually, is that something that you noticed or that you could think of that could form a problem in that type of sales?
Yeah, and this might be an assumption. Not everybody wants to become a sales executive. That was also my idea. So the senior SDR I was talking about, of course, I wanted to have her as an SDR, especially for 12 to 18 coming months. She did not want to become a people manager. So I designed mini promotions, like SDRs had 4 different mini promotions. And every time the basic salary went up a bit, the bonus went up a bit, the verticals moved as well. They became involved into onboarding people. So you really try to find ways to keep people in that SDR spot while they know the company is growing. So there is a spot into inside sales, and then moving up into a senior inside sales, and then moving into field sales or into the people management. So when the career pathing is clear, then you can design something for where everybody feels happy and rewarded into the company. The moment is when you don't have this, and it exists when you have, okay, this is the AE role, this is the executive role, and there is no path for you to become a field salesperson, because either maybe you don't live in that country, or you suddenly need a degree, or whatever the reason is, then you start losing people. So having that career pathing is, as you say, Bram, is very important.
Yeah, it's something that I got quite some feedback on that video that I launched about full stack sales. People that said it can't work, or people that said it will work. I see it. But I think a big part of it is that career path. Because you can be a startup and you can decide tomorrow, I'm going to do full stack sales. It's cheaper because I don't need different roles. Mm-hmm. You will probably need more experienced people because they need to be able to do the full stack. But anyway, but I think what is most overlooked is you're not just putting it in one role, but you need to give these people perspective. Otherwise, after a year, they will be gone.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Yeah. Definitely. And I know quite a lot of people that are so good in full stack sales, they don't even like getting leads in. They really want to hit the phone, start talking to people, say, okay, give it to me. And so the people, they do exist, and they're very successful. And then what you also see is, what is an SQL? What is an MQL? So the whole pathing, there's very often the conversation and between marketing or between SDRs. When other SDRs, they don't give me the good leads, let me do my own calling out. But there's a mix. I also have people that are, strange to say, that are afraid to make that first dial, and then, okay, put me in front of a customer and then I will close. So being able to segment, so this is what I did in companies that I worked. Despite a certain way of working we were in, it's important to look at what are the skills we have in our team, and find a right approach for them so they can be successful. Don't try to fit everybody in a little box. And sometimes in big companies, or certainly if you say, okay, I need to hire 100 salespeople or 200 salespeople or more, then you really run the risk to put people in a box to run the process. And I understand, to make it scalable. However, this is not always the right long-term solution, especially if you don't have that career pathing in with you. You have huge companies that do it right. Like if you look at Salesforce, they really have that career pathing right, where you start as an SDR, then you can go to inside sales, you can go back then in Dublin, then you can go back to country to become a field sales. So there are companies that are doing it very well. So I'm not just saying only small companies can do it right. No, definitely not. But it is a challenge, yeah.
Yeah. Well, of course, Salesforce is one of the biggest companies in the world.
And they're successful, obviously, right? So
yeah.
they do something right. Yeah.
Yeah. 40,000 employees, I thought, when I last checked.
Yeah.
That's insane.
The thing is, so I was talking to a high performance coach as well, and she said that never try to fit people into boxes. We are not robots, and try to know what you can get out of them. What is the global outcome we want to achieve as a team, even in sales when it's closing maybe, but who you close to, how you close, you have different type of customers, even if you run a book of business or a territory. So assign the people on the right type of customers to have the right type of conversations, rather than blindly assigning a book. And that's the way you go for it. And that's not the most intelligent way of thinking for me.
But it's super difficult if you don't have experience in that.
It is. Yeah.
And then I link it back to what I'm familiar with is startups and companies that just start to grow. You're just doing something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true. That's testing, right? And don't be afraid to immediately have a nurture strategy. If it doesn't work in your first pitch, so there are multiple possibilities, right? So either it's because, okay, let us assume that the pitch was good. Maybe you did not even speak to the right customer profile. Maybe that customer is completely out of your ideal customer profile. However, your product fit in the beginning is based on assumptions, maybe 10, 20, 30 interviews with customers, maybe an MVP built around this. But then you need to start focusing, testing your assumptions based on the reality, based on, and then when you're there, you need a nurturing strategy. You never know when you say, okay, listen, this is now a moment. You have a successful case. Let's put the people that we put into nurturing back into our sales funnel and start reaching out to them. Yeah. And then the third thing is that you speak to the right person within that company. If you know the company you're targeting can have a solution, can use your solution, but when you speak to an operational person that says, oh, if I use that solution, I'm going to have so much more work, I'm going to say no to it. However, you speak to a business person or a decision maker, they know from the wider scope that they have over the business that, yes, this could be a very good solution. Then maybe change the contact person within the organization. So there are a few things to take into account and to do even from the beginning.
Also, something often overlooked is you take an organization with 100 people, you take one person out of it, person says no, and the whole organization is no. Yeah. Then they never look back to that account, and then it's like, they don't want to buy.
Exactly, but then those are classics, right? You only tried once, but those are classics. Everybody know this, and
but
this
still.
is really something. It is. I know, because we have a limited amount of time, and we have our target list to contact. Still. As you said, but if you have a target, you know the company can benefit from it. Having that pitch right, and then talking to that right person, try to identify who is that right person. It's worth the investment in time.
Yeah. A few minutes back, you said something about commissions and pay of salespeople. It's something that in the recent days I've saw appear on LinkedIn a lot, that people are starting to question SDR and account executives' commissions because they feel like it's a way of paying them lower and then putting a whole lot on a bonus. How do you feel about the commission system?
Oh, I love a commission system. I think my thing is when I negotiated a pay, I looked at the OTE. I did not care at all what is the base or what is the variable. Okay, I realize if you look at the pension funds and so on, it's based on the pays on the base. But in all, you look at the OTE and then what is the accelerator. So I don't mind if the base pay is lower than an average pay. Absolutely not. If you are, or when you are a salesperson with a drive, then you will hit that 100%. That's a base, and then you will start hitting your accelerators. So that's why for me it's important. How does a bonus structure looks like? Is it capped? Is it uncapped? Because you do have companies, and for me it is mind blowing. You can only reach your 100%, or even if you have 95%, they don't pay out any of your bonus. So it should also be there, a smart staged bonus system. And then you have the different variables as well. And don't make it too complex, but definitely for me the 100% OTE. And I also look into this when people, when I talk to people about it. Do they see money as something bad, or as something dirty, or do you see it as a tool to obtain something? Whether freedom, doing your goals, going back to study, buying a home, supporting my family. I know people that support their family in thousands of kilometers away, and they have a drive, and they don't try to keep all the money for themselves. They know why they work.
Mm-hmm. But it's for example with junior people that sometimes it weighs heavy on the chest because they have that target of 300,000 euros, for example, and only then they have their 100%. You have a lot of people that even before they start, it's like, how am I going to do this? And then they do all the things that you shouldn't do when doing sales. They're going to straight in pitch. They're going to do this, that. I think in my mind, it's a bonus system that you implement when you're very sure about the number that you set. Is it reachable? But how do you know it's reachable for a specific person? You almost have to be a psychologist to read the person's mind. Is this person going to be able to reach that? Is that something that you play along with, or is it like one fits all?
Bonus system wise, in general, yes, one size fits all. Target setting wise, no, because everybody has a ramp up stage. Mm-hmm. So definitely give somebody 9 months to 12 months, give them a lower target, definitely, to give them the sense of success. What is also very important, if you set them stretch goals, and definitely for high performance, you need to set them stretch goals with extra incentives besides the bonus system. When you set the goals, make sure that they can reach them by building an onboarding structure. Don't say, okay, you have one afternoon when you start working with us, an afternoon to get to know the products, and then this is the phone. That you also have a 2 weeks, a 1 month onboarding with courses, shadow sessions, sales plays, so that the people from day 1 they join till day 15, day 30, when they're ready to hit the phone, that they really are burning like, give me the phone. I know when I started over 5 years ago at Indeed, the onboarding system was fantastic. You really felt the temperature rising on around the tables. That okay, please put me behind the phone. I'm ready to call. The products are fantastic. The onboarding is fantastic. So that was brilliantly done from Indeed. Mm-hmm. And then you really saw them really jumping out of their seats, and it was a fantastic. It is a fantastic atmosphere. You really need this, and it sets the people up for success.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's something, again, depending on the culture of the company, depending on who is running the company, it can either make or break for an SDR that just starts. Because sometimes you just say that here's LinkedIn Learning, and I've highlighted a few courses that I think you should take, and then here's a playlist of Winning by Design on YouTube that I think you should take a look at, and then that's it, you're ready to go.
Yeah, well, you had a few L&D people on the podcast, and it is a very not just strategic role, it's a mission critical role, and I 100% agree that they need to have an important seat on the table when people decide on strategy, sales, onboarding. It's absolutely critical.
Yeah, Yeah, I believe that as well. And it's something as well, it's like what you said about systems and processes and actually everything we've discussed is about set it in stone from the beginning. Make sure that once you start hiring for SDRs or salespeople, that you have that structure in place, even if it's trial and error, but have something so you don't burn your people immediately and all that sort of stuff.
I would not set it in stone. I would set it in wax. It always should be changeable. Always, and again, this is the big difference between startups and scale-ups: the testing environment, the agile environment versus mature companies. Mature companies start to look at the process and they don't ask questions. Why is there a process in the first place? Maybe you can even remove the complete process. If you look at the Amazon shop concept, where you have nobody in the shops that's working there. You just take the stuff and you're automatically checked out. So
I love
brilliant.
That. There's one in Ghent, the personless store. And you're always the only buyer there as well. There's nobody there. It's like an empty store.
It's brilliant. You remove all the processes of taking the product, putting it in your box, putting it back on the belt, having somebody else takes it, pays it. So all these steps are gone. And I think we should always be able to challenge this in any organization. That's why I'm really pretty adamant on saying we don't set things in stone. We set the foundation, and the name of our company is Jump Foundation, and then so that we can jump, but we keep on challenging what we have set.
Yeah, but it's important to start early on.
Definitely.
I had that conversation with a lot of these people from sales enablement backgrounds. It's like companies start too late with thinking about enablement.
Yeah,
it's probably definitely the same thing that you will preach with your company, is like people start too late with thinking about systems and processes.
Yeah, you miss a lot of insights, and then you need to start measuring, because you need somehow having somewhere a baseline so that you can start improving. If you don't have a baseline, you cannot start improving, because you don't know if it's the best thing you can do or not.
Yeah, true. As a last question for you, if tomorrow I call you and I say, Cedric, I have a billboard for you at the side of the road, what would be your quote that you put on the billboard?
Be yourself. The thing is, we all, it's an assumption, we all, at least in my case, I was being somebody I thought I had to be. And then you realize way too late in life that that's not the goal, and being really yourself, being authentic, because I really believe then you'll be the most successful, because people will see that you're genuine, will trust you faster. You are who you are, thanks to your experiences and everything else, your upbringing and everything else. So be yourself. In the end, it's only best for you and your environment.
Mm-hmm. Often forgotten as well.
Yeah, true. And again, that's a very. So I'm a very creative person. I used to be a very big heart person. And then when I entered business, I knew analytics were important, but I was going so deep into this that I forgot a lot of the hard aspect, that genuinely connecting with people aspect, and it took me years, and it's still a work in progress to really find that balance between connecting your heart with your mind, and it's. And that's why I say, if I knew this lesson maybe years ago, I would have been able earlier on to have that balance.
That's what life throws at you, right?
True, yeah, right. Yes.
It throws you things, and it's about how you handle things.
Yeah,
but
that's it.
Eventually everything lands on its feet, as always.
Yeah, that's true. And then you can jump.
Awesome. I will link your book and your organization below the podcast for everyone who wanted to check it out.
Thank you.
I would love to thank you for joining me on the Sound of Sales.
Thank you, Bram. I really appreciate the invitation. I really had a blast talking about all things sales, and best of luck with your podcast and with your venture.
Thank you.